EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday morning edition of Birds 365. Today is your final day of Eagles training camp. They're fresh off the open practice to the public last night at the link as we roll right along and get ready now for the regular season. I believe 18 days out from the Eagles home opener and season opener at the link versus the Commanders. Johnny Mack, welcome to the program this morning, my friend. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing well. Yeah, we're here. Vic Fangio today at 2:00, practice at 2:15. So moved up a little bit, but last day of school.
Yeah, and they give us Vic Fangio on the last day. That's great.
Yeah. Except we know everything about the defense. The defense is pretty locked in.
Yeah, that's true. But like you say when you talk to Vic, you always get a little something.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he'll talk about the college stuff that Nick didn't want to talk about yesterday. You got to ask about Daquan Wright, which is an interesting story. He was here, pretty high profile, undrafted free agent, and a lot of people were excited about him. Didn't get much traction. And he's going back to college. He got waived, picked up by Cleveland, got waived there. Now he's going back to LSU. What a cluster, you know what, man. Woo. Just ridiculous. They got to do something.
Well, John, it's the wild, wild west in college, man.
It really is.
It really is. So,
hey, you know what? He can make a lot of money doing that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So if everybody wants to, they've decided to go this way, you can't go this way and then try and, overly create guardrails. To me, it makes sense that they've allowed it just from a sense of what's happened with college, but football, and in college as a whole. It's a business now, John. It's not college sports.
It is, but it's like if it were a minor league, like they want to keep the branding of Alabama and Notre Dame and Michigan and Ohio State. They want that branding because that branding, man, even though the players might be good on the Birmingham Stallions or whatever they're calling the UFL teams now, it's not the same. You need the branding of Alabama, the Crimson Tide, the Fighting, and it's just not. But they're professionals. They're just lower level professionals.
That's what they are. You're right. And if it's one this year, John, how many is it in the future? It might just become
it's already
a true farm system. He called up, called down, sent up, sent down. Yeah. Who knows what's coming in the future, man. But you're right. It's kind of chaotic, so it is what it is. But it's an interesting story, that Daquan Wright. We'll see what happens, how good he plays.
Yeah, Nick wanted no part of it, man. No part of it. But
I guess I can understand that. Nick's,
But the guy can't make an NFL team, and he can go make money at LSU. I don't begrudge him that. I'll tell you that.
No, yeah. I don't either.
And LSU can afford to pay him more than the Houston whatever. They're not the Gamblers anymore, but whatever the UFL team is. I haven't kept up with my UFL nicknames.
Maybe the Roughnecks or something goofy like that. I'm not sure. Houston UFL team.
They even have one.
They were the Roughnecks, but they're not, and there's no longer a team in Houston. Okay. They folded and relocated ahead of the 2027 season. They were the Roughnecks, though. Wow.
They did play this season, though.
They were the Roughnecks through 24, and then they were the Gamblers in 2026. Okay. And now they are gone from Houston.
All right. Well, if you can't make it in Houston, all right. The Dallas Renegades. How about that? There's a team. So, but you can't make money with the Dallas Renegades, so you can make money with LSU.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Johnny Mac, moving here into the Birds talk. We're going to have Mike Gill and BLG today, so we should have a great show for everybody to hear a couple different perspectives. We are yesterday, I believe, was day 16 of camp, and that was the open practice. John, I got to talk to you briefly last night on your ride out of there. How was the open practice to the public, J-Mac?
it was good. 45,000 or so in the stadium. They went almost 2 hours, so they gave them a little bit more than they typically do. It was a scrimmage-like environment, so it was competitive between offense and defense. They were grading it. Lord knows how they keep score. It's not like you get 6 points for a touchdown and you kick the extra point. It's not replicant of a game in that instance, but they tried to make it as competitive as possible, and a lot of first team reps, obviously, again, because they're not going to play on Friday, to put it mildly. So some good from both sides. I think far more good from the defense, and especially Reek Woolen and the front, which has been dominant throughout. That the floor of this team is, I talk about it all the time. It's very high, and it's very high because of the defense as a whole. But number one, the defensive front. It's so good. It's so good. Teams are going to have trouble blocking the Eagles on a weekly basis. So I think this it can't be a 6-win team. The floor is not going to fall out from this team. So I think that's the biggest positive you've taken from this summer as a whole. And then offensively, it's a work in progress, but that shouldn't surprise anybody. It really shouldn't.
How do you feel Nick Sirianni has done so far at the start of this season? Obviously not in the season yet, but just in preparation, preparing his team for the season.
Well, I think he's done it enough to where it becomes, I always joke, like, I don't know how long Andy's going to go, Andy Reid, but if he coaches for 5 more years, you could ask him what the schedule for training camp is going to be in 2031, and he'll tell you. That's how organized he is. So I think it's the setup has become second nature to him. And there's obviously little tweaks along the way. You might have weather that forces you inside. That happened once this summer. You might have injuries like you did last night with Lane Johnson did tweak himself while he was going up from the field back to the press box. Me and Josh Grizzard stuck. Come on, like at Financial Field.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's the first performance of the year, John, and we got broken elevators. Come on, Jeffrey.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of funny. So that happened very early in the practice. And when I got up there, Fred was in there. I'm like, oh, they just gave I didn't think twice of it because it made sense. With Landon having a rest day as well. So anyway, but that's what you want most of all. And you did get a little bit of an injury. Jordan Davis also left for a small, but came back. So hopefully he's okay. But, last year at that practice, that's where Landon got hurt and he had knee surgery and he was back like 3 days later. But he was not himself. So, they had a couple tweaks and hopefully it's not more than that. But that's the most important part. And then some good work in and guys who've been stories the entire camp. Jalix Hunt, tremendous. Moro Jomo, tremendous. Not perfect. Moro jumped off sides, gave up a first down. That was good for Jalen Hurts using cadence to get him to jump off. I think it was a 4th and 2. But as a pass rusher, he's been off the charts. And Jalix, and even Nolan Smith, I think everybody forgets about Nolan Smith because Jalix is performing so well. He's had a good summer. He's healthier. He's gained weight. He said, we talked to him yesterday. So And they don't even have Grenard yet. I mean that defensive front is just ridiculous from a depth standpoint.
Yeah, it really is. Boy, if Grenard is what we think he's going to be when healthy, John, it's going to be that could be one of the best defensive fronts. Probably will be the best defensive front in football.
It's going to be in the conversation. That's what I always say. If you're in the conversation, you're good.
Right, that's good. Yeah,
You know, the Rams have a good one as well. So yeah, I
the
don't know if
Rams
it's
do,
gonna
the
be
Texans do. It just
Yeah.
feels like the depth on the Eagles is crazy. Like the fourth, or the third edge is Nolan Smith, who's I think a good player. The third off defensive tackle is Moro Majomo. That's probably the best third DT in the league. So I think the depth on Philly is really good. But John, the reason I asked about Nick is and I think it's your comment is fair. At some point it becomes a little bit of repetitive. But I was listening to, weirdly enough, a Mike McDaniel interview. All right. I know some people might tune out now that they've heard that, but he was on the Pivot podcast with Ryan Clark and a couple of those guys. And he said something interesting that I thought was a good comment. And it was when I first took the Miami head coaching job, I had said to my wife at the time, and in a weird way, like Mike always speaks, but I had said to my wife at the time, I can't wait for my first 3-game losing streak. And she's like, what the hell does that? Why would you hope for that? And he's like, well, it's easy to coach when you're successful. You need a head coach, though, when there's adversity hits, when shit hits the fan, for lack of a better word. And I thought that was an interesting point, just from a sense of Nick's done an excellent job at coaching this team for sure. But I think where people criticize is the lack of answers they feel as though he's provided in the two big collapses, that the team has had in 23 and not last year wasn't a collapse, but they sputtered out and they never had any answers for what to do. And I think that would be one area where Nick probably, could improve on to have more, consistent success. And I understand he's had
I would offer a bunch of pushback to that. From the standpoint of, go sit down in the corner, Mike McDaniel. Number one, you're talking you're talking about a head coach and he would never.
Well, he didn't say it about Nick.
I know that. I know
Nick,
that, but I'm just talking. You're talking about a head coach with tremendous success, and he would never say, "I want to have a 3-game losing streak." Just not his mentality. That doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's not his mentality. His mentality is, win at all costs, competitive advantage, lunatic in that part of it, which is good. It can be annoying at times, but it's good from the standpoint of, you're not hoping for 3, even in that.
No, I think the point is,
I get the point, but you're not even saying it. I think if you have the mentality of those high level coaches, you're not talking like that. Number one, but the second part is the larger point. That it's one of the things that bothers me to no end. Oh, you didn't have answers. No, we didn't have successful answers. Ironically, in their bad seasons, which are 11 wins, he's thrown shit at the wall trying to fix shit. Last year, they changed the whole running game in season. They went under center in season. They did all their stuff they're doing now to the point where I criticized them. I didn't agree with it. If you go back to the Sean Desai year, they were whatever they were, 8-1, whatever. I forget what they were, and they were thinking about changing from Sean Desai, which again I criticized. Not that he was doing a great job, but I'm like, all right, there's not a ton of talent. You've used 8 nickelbacks. I think it will be worse if you change, and they did change, and it was worse. Like the idea that you have answers that are going to be successful and you're just going to flip a switch doesn't exist.
I think that's a good point. I think the expectation is obviously high, and that makes the the evaluation of it difficult. But it did happen with 2 first-time offensive coordinators. I mean, it's fair to assume, hey, it could happen again here with Sean Mannion if things
Well,
aren't working.
look, that I've said from
But
the
I do
start.
appreciate your point. He has made changes. It just hasn't all been successful. So we're judging the result more so.
Yeah, it's always that way with coaches, but that's the way it is. But the idea that he just sits stagnant, and people say that today about last season. It's like, what the hell are you watching? I mean, they tried shit they probably shouldn't be trying since the quarterback didn't want to do it. Like, if you want to criticize him for that, I'm all on board. I'll get behind you.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I don't buy into that. That's just about you're not happy with the end result, which I get, which is still 11 wins. But the whole idea, they never changed, they never do this. Last year is not the year to argue that. It is not the year to argue that. And I would take the exact other that they did too much instead of. In my opinion, when you struggle, you should go back to your DNA, what has made you successful.
Right. It's like fundamentals in basketball, right? You're struggling to hit a jump shot, go back to the free throw line or go back under the hoop, right?
And I think they went the exact opposite direction. And they upset Jeff Stoutland and yada, yada, yada. There's all this evidence that tells you all the different things they were trying to do to try to fix what was going on with the offense. So yeah, I think that's fundamentally flawed way of looking at it. But, and I get what Mike McDaniel's saying, but yeah, if you're a head coach, and he'll learn that, and he'll probably be a head coach again. You don't say shit like that. You don't want a 3-game losing streak.
That's fair.
You're going to have one, but
right. I mean, I think it probably said it the wrong way, but when adversity does inevitably strike in the NFL, which it always will, that's where
it's like when
is the burden is toughest,
It's like when Kevin Patullo said, sometimes you run the ball and run the ball. And in the moment,
bad delivery.
I said, okay. I know exactly what he was saying, but I'm like, buddy.
Tough delivery.
Yeah.
All right, John, I want to talk a little bit about Makai Lemon as well. We're going to have Mike Gill on here in a second, so we don't have too long. But Makai Lemon has been back on the practice field now the last couple of days. You can tell me how it looks. He also spoke yesterday, John, and, I don't know. You tell me if you made anything of it. Cilio was hard on him about the way he comes across very unprofessional, and I think he said something to the effect of, I got to go get that money or something like that, which I think, for any younger people out there, that's kind of a phrase you use to go and accomplish, what you need to accomplish. Get out of bed and get this money. I don't know if it always means, hey, I got to get, paid for being out here. But your thoughts on Makai Lemon's return to camp? He's had a couple of comments now. We didn't really talk to him, obviously, when he was injured. So he's been kind of absent from the camp storylines. Your thoughts on Makai Lemon's first couple of days of camp and how he's looked as well on the practice field?
Well, it hasn't been great, to be honest. But Dom calls him Long Beach, by the way, because he reminds him of Deshaun Jackson. Yeah, I'll tell you what, he doesn't have Deshaun Jackson speed. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Not many do, to be fair.
No.
Okay.
At one point in yesterday's practice, literally the play before he scored a touchdown, literally the play before, because he got completely shut down. And Andrew DiCecco was about 10 seats down from me, and we just looked at each other and said, this guy can't get any separation. He can't get a sliver of separation. And then they put him in the backfield and got him loose, and the defense blew a coverage, and he scored a touchdown. So when I always talk about scheming people up, it means more when guys can't get open on their own. It's very early, but he has not shown the ability to separate from admittedly top tier corners, Quinyon Mitchell,
right,
Cooper DeJean, and McMullen, who are top tier corners. He can't separate from these guys.
And the answer to that, John, is what? He becomes a manufactured touch type of player?
Well, the answer to that is you're going to have to figure out ways to, what happened to the defense. He's in the backfield. He's never been in the
Right.
backfield, to my
It's kind of
knowledge.
what I meant. Yeah, manufactured. I
And they
mean, not
can
manufactured every time, but to some extent,
Yeah, that's not manufactured touch to me is a guy who's doesn't run great routes, but is a great athlete. And you want to get him in space, so that's where the bubble screens come in.
Right. Okay, that's fair. A
Um,
little different.
he's his strength is supposed to be route running. He's more of the scheme open guy right now, whereas you got to get him lost because he's not going to win with his physical ability. I'm stunned, and it's a very small sample size, but yeah, he can't get open against these guys.
And why do you think it is? Are the routes not as crisp as we were sold? Is he like sometimes I think, the expression you can be fast, but not quick. Is that a part of it? I was watching him run the cone drills. He had great footwork during the cone drills, but he kind of had the hesitation right before he did it, versus Smitty just runs up, boom, 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 and goes right through. What is it to you that seems as though why he's not getting that separation? Is it the routes? Are they not as crisp?
Well,
as
yeah, the routes have not been as good as advertised. I mean, the interception of McMullen, it was completely rounded off, as opposed to being the sharp Dontavian Wicks like cuts or DeMonte Smith like cuts. So you're making it easy for the corner, especially a corner with that speed and that length, because he's going to run you down. And he did. He just undercut it. Easy interception for him. So hopefully that's just something that he's got to get back to it. Maybe a little bit rusty, but it's a very small sample size, and I know people are going to run with this, but those are my early. Just you can only report on what you see, and right now we can't get open.
Well, we're going to keep an eye on Makai.
And right now, by the way, week 1, right now, they got 2.5 weeks to work on this, but I think Darius Cooper deserves to play more than him early.
I don't know if he will, as you know, the business of the NFL. Here's a super chat real quick on Makai before we get to Mike Gill. Urine says, hey guys, love the content. I watched cut-ups last night. Makai looked like he was getting separation. The ball just didn't go his way. Keep it up though, guys.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, admittedly, I'm only looking at, I'm only looking when the ball is thrown to him. And in those instances, he was not getting separate, except for the touchdown where he got lost. That was complete complete blown coverage.
There, right. John's only got one set of eyes, so you can't watch everything out there. Here's General J. Did you guys see Big Dom's interview on Netflix? I did not. I didn't know he was on.
I did not. But I talk to Dom every day, so
what show was it? I'll check it out. We got Mike Gill. We'll get to Mike Gill.
He was on Pete Davidson's show. He's good friends with Pete Davidson. Pete's an Eagles fan. He's always at Eagles games.
I didn't know Pete Davidson had a show on Netflix. I'll have to look for the Big Dom interview, though. Maybe there's a cut-up of it somewhere. I doubt I'll be a Pete Davidson show fan. I'm not a big TV watcher myself.